Maya woke up that Tuesday morning like any other day, her alarm buzzing at 6:30 sharp. She looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror while brushing her teeth, practicing the smile she would wear at work. It was the same smile she had perfected over the past 2 years at Henderson Marketing. Not too bright, not too confident, just enough to seem friendly, but not threatening. Her husband was already downstairs making coffee, his hair still messy from sleep. He wore his old college t-shirt and pajama pants, looking nothing like the powerful businessman the world knew him as. This was her favorite version of him, the one only she got to see. "Another exciting day at the office?" he asked, handing her a steaming mug with a gentle kiss on her forehead. Maya rolled her eyes playfully. "Oh, you know it. I get to present my campaign ideas to people who will probably take credit for them later." He frowned, the same expression he got whenever she mentioned work. "You know you don't have to work there, right? You could start your own company tomorrow." "We've talked about this," Maya said softly, touching his arm. "I need to prove I can do this on my own, without anyone thinking I only got where I am because of who I married." He nodded, understanding but not completely agreeing. This conversation happened at least once a week. Maya had chosen to keep her maiden name at work, and most of her colleagues had no idea she was even married, let alone to whom. The drive to work took 30 minutes through morning traffic. Maya used this time to mentally prepare herself for another day of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle dismissals. She parked her modest Honda Civic next to the flashy cars of her co-workers and took a deep breath. Henderson Marketing occupied the 15th floor of a glass building downtown. Maya had been working there for almost 2 years now, ever since she decided she wanted to build her own career path. With her MBA from Princeton and her natural talent for marketing, she thought climbing the corporate ladder would be straightforward. She was wrong. The elevator doors opened to reveal Jessica, the office manager, already dressed in her designer outfit and checking her phone. Jessica looked up briefly, gave Maya a once-over, and looked back at her phone without saying hello. "Good morning, Jessica," Maya said anyway, her practiced smile in place. Jessica mumbled without looking up. Maya's desk was in the middle of the open floor plan, surrounded by her co-workers, but somehow always feeling isolated. She had decorated it simply with a small plant and a photo of a sunset. Nothing too personal. Her computer screen came to life as she settled in with her coffee and began reviewing the presentation she had been working on for weeks. The morning started typically. Around 9, Jessica gathered everyone for the daily team meeting. Maya had prepared extensively for this moment. She had spent the previous weekend perfecting her campaign proposal for their biggest client, a local restaurant chain looking to expand their social media presence. "All right, everyone," Jessica announced, perching on the edge of the conference table like she owned the place. "Let's hear what brilliant ideas we have today." Maya raised her hand. "I've been working on the Romano's restaurant campaign. I think I have some really strong concepts to share." Jessica's smile looked more like a smirk. "Oh, Maya has ideas. How original." A few people chuckled. Maya felt her cheeks warm but pressed on. She stood up and began explaining her concept, a community-focused campaign that would highlight local ingredients and family traditions. She had researched extensively, created mock-ups, and even reached out to potential local partners. As she spoke, she noticed Brad, one of the senior associates, scrolling through his phone. Nicole was filing her nails. Tom was clearly playing a game on his tablet. Only a few people were actually listening, and Maya could see in their faces that they weren't impressed. "That's interesting," Jessica said when Maya finished. "But I think what you're missing is the bigger picture. We need something more sophisticated, more professional." "I think connecting with the community is very professional," Maya replied politely. "Market research shows that consumers prefer brands that feel authentic and local." "Market research," Jessica repeated, her voice dripping with condescension. "How academic of you. But this is the real world, sweetie. Our clients need results, not theories from business school." Maya felt the familiar sting of being dismissed, but she had learned not to push back too hard in front of everyone. "Of course, I'd be happy to revise the approach. That would be great, Jessica said, already moving on. Brad, why don't you take the lead on Romano's? I think your experience would be valuable here. Maya watched as her weeks of work were casually handed over to someone who hadn't even been paying attention during her presentation. Brad looked up from his phone, surprised to suddenly be given a project he knew nothing about. Sure, he said. I'll need to, review everything. First, Maya can fill you in on her research, Jessica said sweetly. I'm sure she'd be happy to help. Maya nodded, knowing she had no choice. This happened regularly. She would do the groundwork, the research, the creative thinking, and then watch, as someone else got to present it to the clients and take the credit. The meeting ended and everyone dispersed back to their desks. Maya sat down heavily in her chair, feeling drained before the day had really begun. She looked at her phone and saw a text from her husband asking how her presentation went. She typed back a simple, "Fine," because she didn't want to worry him. Lunch. Time approached and Maya watched as her co-workers gathered in small groups, making plans to go out together. No one asked her to join. This had been the pattern for 2 years. She ate her sandwich at her desk while working, trying to look busy and unbothered. Around 2 in the afternoon, Jessica announced that the office would be having their monthly celebration. Someone had gotten a promotion in another department, and there would be cake and drinks in the break room. Maya had learned to approach these gatherings carefully. She would show up, smile, congratulate whoever was being celebrated, and leave quickly. The break room was decorated with balloons and a store-bought cake sat on the table next to bottles of soda and fancy water. Maya filled a small plate with some fruit and stood near the back of the room, watching her co-workers laugh and chat easily with each other. Maya, Jessica called out loudly. Come over here. Don't be antisocial. Maya walked over to where Jessica stood with Brad, Nicole, and Tom. They were the unofficial leaders of the office social scene, the ones who decided who was in and who was out. We were just talking about weekend plans, Jessica said with that same fake smile. What do you do for fun, Maya? Besides work, of course. Oh, normal stuff. Reading, movies, spending time at home. Sounds thrilling, Nicole said, exchanging a look with the others. Do you even have friends outside of work? Tom asked with a laugh that wasn't entirely friendly. Maya felt her face burn. Of course I do. We never see you at any of the happy hours or office parties, Brad pointed out. Are you sure you're not just making up having a social life? Maya knew they were testing her, looking for reactions they could use against her later. She had learned to stay calm during these moments even though her heart was racing. I just prefer to keep my work life and personal life separate, she said simply. Jessica laughed. How very professional of you. Though I have to wonder what kind of personal life requires that much secrecy. Maya excused herself and went back to her desk, her appetite gone. She threw away her untouched plate of fruit and focused on her computer screen, trying to block out the laughter coming from the break room. This was her normal Tuesday at Henderson Marketing. Tomorrow would probably be much the same. Maya had no idea that everything was about to change, or that the worst day of her work life was about to become the catalyst for something completely unexpected. The celebration in the break room was getting louder as more people gathered around the cake table. Maya had hoped to slip away quietly, but Jessica's voice cut through the chatter like a knife. Maya, don't you dare leave yet, Jessica called, out, her tone sweet but with an edge that made Maya's stomach tighten. We're just getting started with the fun. Maya turned back, forcing another smile. I actually have some client calls to make this afternoon. Client calls can wait, Jessica said, walking over with Brad, Nicole, and Tom following behind her like loyal soldiers. You know what your problem is, Maya? You're always so serious, so uptight. You need to learn how to have fun with the team. Then why? Break room had gotten crowded now, with nearly everyone from the office squeezed inside. Maya felt trapped, surrounded by faces that ranged from curious to amused to completely indifferent. She clutched her folder of client documents closer to her chest, a habit she had developed when feeling nervous. I'm not uptight, Maya said quietly. I just take my work seriously. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Jessica laughed, looking around at the others for support. Everything is work, work, work with you. When was the last time you just relaxed and had a good time? Nicole giggled. Maybe she doesn't know how to have fun. Some people are just born boring. Maya felt her face getting hot. She had been dealing with comments like this for 2 years, but something about today felt different. More aggressive, more personal. I have fun, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady, just not necessarily at work. Oh, really? Tom jumped in, his voice getting louder. What kind of fun? Organizing your sock drawer? Reading instruction manuals? More people were turning to watch now. Maya could see some of her co-workers looking uncomfortable, but none of them spoke up. They never did. Brad stepped closer and Maya caught a whiff of something on his breath. Had he been drinking? It was only 3 in the afternoon, but she noticed his eyes looked a little glassy. You know what I think? Brad said, swaying slightly. I think Maya here thinks she's better than us. Too good to hang out with the regular people. That's not true, Maya protested, but her voice came out smaller than she intended. Isn't it, though? Jessica's smile was getting meaner by the second. You never come to happy hour. You never join us for lunch. You sit at your desk like you're working on something super important, but we all know you're just pretending. Maya's heart was pounding now. She could feel the walls of the break room closing in on her. Everyone was staring, waiting to see what would happen next. I'm going back to my desk, Maya said, turning toward the door. Oh, no, you don't, Jessica said, stepping sideways to block her path. We're having a conversation here. It's rude to walk away in the middle of a conversation. Maya looked around the room, hoping someone would intervene, but everyone just stood there watching like it was some kind of entertainment. Please, I really do have work to finish, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Work, 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 Nicole sang in a mocking tone. That's all she ever talks about. Maybe if she actually did good work, we'd take her seriously, Tom added, getting a laugh from several people. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She would not cry in front of these people. She would not give them that satisfaction. You know what? Jessica said, her voice getting that dangerous tone Maya had learned to recognize. I think Maya needs to learn how to loosen up, how to be more flexible. Maya didn't like the way Jessica was looking at her. There was something in her eyes that made alarm bells go off in Maya's head. I think I'll just go back to my desk now, Maya said, trying to step around Jessica. Nope, Jessica said, grabbing Maya's arm. The party's just getting started. Maya tried to pull away, but Jessica's grip was surprisingly strong. Let go of me, please. Relax, Maya, Jessica said, but her voice was anything but relaxed. We're all friends here, right, guys? Brad, Nicole, and Tom were grinning now, like they were all in on some joke that Maya didn't understand. Other people in the room were starting to look uncomfortable, but still nobody said anything. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Maya said, trying to keep her voice calm and professional. I'm not trying to be antisocial. I just prefer to keep my work relationships professional. Professional, Jessica repeated like it was a dirty word. You keep saying that, but you know what? I don't think you're being professional at all. I think you're being stuck up. Maya's folder of client documents was getting crumpled in her tight grip. These were important papers she needed for her afternoon meeting with the Romano's restaurant account, the same account Jessica had taken away from her that morning. I'm not stuck up, Maya said. I'm just trying to do my job. Your job, Brad said with a snort. You mean the job where you come up with ideas that don't work and then act surprised when we have to fix them? My ideas are based on solid research and market analysis, Maya replied, feeling a spark of anger break through her fear. Market analysis, Nicole repeated in a high-pitched voice, mimicking Maya. Listen to her. She sounds like a textbook. The crowd around them was getting bigger. Maya could see people pulling out their phones, probably to record what was happening. The thought of this moment being captured and shared made her feel sick. Jessica still had hold of Maya's arm, and now she was pulling her toward the center of the room, near the table with the cake and drinks. You know what your real problem is, Maya? Jessica said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You think you're smarter than everyone else. You think your fancy degree makes you special. I never said that, Maya protested. You don't have to say it, Tom joined in. It's written all over your face. Every time one of us talks, you get that look. Like you're thinking about how much better you are than us. Maya looked around desperately for a friendly face. Someone who might help her. But everyone was either enjoying the show or pretending to be invisible. I really need to go, Maya said, trying once more to pull away from Jessica's grip. Not yet, Jessica said, her smile turning cruel. We haven't finished our little chat about teamwork and fitting in. That's when Maya noticed Brad picking up his large Coca-Cola from the table. The cup was nearly full and condensation was dripping down the sides. He was holding it in a way that made Maya nervous, like he was getting ready to use it for something other than drinking. You know what I think would help Maya loosen up? Brad said, his words slightly slurred. I think she needs to learn what it feels like to be like the rest of us, not so perfect all the time. Maya's eyes went wide as she understood what was about to happen. Don't, she said, backing away as much as Jessica's grip would allow. Don't what? Jessica asked innocently, but her eyes were dancing with malicious excitement. Please, Maya whispered, but she could already see it was too late. The look on Brad's face told her everything she needed to know. The next few seconds felt like they happened in slow motion. Maya tried to twist away, but Jessica held her firm. Brad lifted the cup and Maya saw the dark liquid sloshing inside. She clutched her important client documents tighter, knowing they were about to be ruined along with everything else. This is for being such a team player, Brad said. And then the cold, sticky Coca-Cola was flying through the air toward her. Maya felt the liquid hit her white blouse first, then her face, then her carefully prepared documents. The soda soaked through her clothes instantly, making her shiver from the cold and the shock. Her client papers were ruined, the ink running and the pages dissolving. The break room erupted in laughter and shocked exclamations. Maya stood there dripping, humiliated, and completely alone, while the people she worked with every day either laughed at her misfortune or looked away in embarrassment. Jessica finally let go of her arm, but by then it didn't matter. The damage was done. Maya stood there in the break room, Coca-Cola dripping from her hair and soaking through her white blouse. The cold, sticky liquid ran down her face and onto her ruined client documents. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the soft drip of soda hitting the floor. Then the laughter started. It began with Nicole's high-pitched giggle, then spread to Tom's loud guffaw, and finally Jessica's satisfied chuckle. Soon half the break room was laughing, while the other half looked away in uncomfortable silence. Maya's hands shook as she tried to hold what was left of her destroyed papers. 2 weeks of research, client analysis, and presentation materials were now a soggy mess in her arms. The ink was running, creating dark streaks across the pages. Oops, Brad said with a smirk, holding up his now empty cup. My bad. Guess I'm clumsier than I thought. Maybe next time you'll watch where you're going, Jessica added sweetly, though Maya hadn't been moving when it happened. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. She straightened her shoulders and tried to salvage whatever dignity she had left. I need to clean up, she said quietly, her voice barely steady. You sure do, Tom said, looking her up and down. You're making a mess all over the floor. Maya pushed through the crowd toward the door, leaving a trail of sticky footprints behind her. She could hear whispers starting as she walked away, but she didn't look back. She couldn't. The bathroom felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the break room. Maya locked the door behind her and finally allowed herself to breathe. Her reflection in the mirror was shocking. Her white blouse was completely ruined, stained brown and clinging to her skin. Her hair was damp and sticky, and there were dark streaks of Coca-Cola running down her cheeks like tears. She turned on the cold water and started trying to wash the soda out of her hair. It was going to take more than a quick rinse to fix this mess. Her hands were still shaking as she worked, the reality of what had just happened starting to sink in. This wasn't just another day of casual disrespect. This was deliberate humiliation, designed to break her down in front of the entire office. And it had worked. Maya felt more defeated than she had in her entire 2 years at Henderson Marketing. She grabbed paper towels and tried to dry her face, but the sticky residue wouldn't come off completely. Her blouse was hopeless. The material was thin and the stain had soaked all the way through. She would have to wear her cardigan buttoned all the way up for the rest of the day. While Maya was in the bathroom trying to put herself back together, something was happening in the lobby of Henderson Marketing that would change everything. The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor, and a man stepped out carrying a beautiful bouquet of white roses, mixed with baby's breath. He was tall and confident, wearing an expensive but understated suit. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and there was something about the way he carried himself that made people notice. The receptionist, Kelly, looked up from her computer and her eyes went wide. She recognized him immediately. Everyone in the business world would recognize Alexander Chen, the tech billionaire whose company had revolutionized cloud computing. His face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine just last month. "Good afternoon," he said with a warm smile, approaching her desk. "I'm here to see Maya Richardson. I wanted to surprise her for lunch." Kelly blinked several times, trying to process what she was hearing. Maya Richardson, the quiet marketing coordinator who sat in the middle cubicle and barely talked to anyone? "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Kelly asked, wondering if she had misheard. "Maya Richardson." "Alexander," repeated patiently. "She works in your marketing department. I'm her husband." Kelly's mouth fell open. Maya Richardson was married to Alexander Chen? How was that possible? Maya drove an old Honda and brought her lunch in a brown bag every day. She never talked about having a husband, let alone one of the richest men in the country. She's here," Kelly stammered, still trying to wrap her head around this information. "But she's in the break room right now. There's some kind of office celebration happening." Alexander's smile brightened. "Perfect timing then. Which way is the break room?" Kelly pointed down the hallway with a shaky finger. "Down that hall, last door on the right. But Mr. Chen, maybe I should call ahead and let her know you're here." "No need," Alexander said with a chuckle. "I want it to be a surprise." As Alexander walked down the hallway toward the break room, he could hear voices and laughter coming from behind the closed door. He pushed it open with one hand, holding the flowers with the other, expecting to see his wife enjoying a celebration with her coworkers. Instead, he walked into a scene that made his blood run cold. The break room was buzzing with excited chatter. Jessica was in the middle of telling the story again, her voice loud and animated. "You should have seen her face," Jessica was saying to a group of people gathered around her. "When that Coca-Cola hit her, she looked like a drowned rat. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost." Brad was refilling his cup at the soda machine, grinning widely. "Best team building exercise we've had in months. Maybe now she'll understand what it means to be part of the group." "Where is she now?" someone asked. "Probably crying in the bathroom," Nicole said with a laugh. "Though honestly, it's about time someone taught her a lesson. She's been acting like she's too good for us since day one." "Did you see how she tried to protect those precious papers of hers?" Tom added. "Like they were worth something. They're probably just as useless as all her other ideas." Alexander stood in the doorway, completely invisible to the group of people, celebrating what they had just done to his wife. The bouquet of flowers felt heavy in his hands as he listened to them mock and laugh about Maya's humiliation. "Maybe now she'll learn to loosen up," Jessica continued. "Or better yet, maybe she'll finally quit. Lord knows we'd all be happier without her here." "What kind of person doesn't have any friends at work anyway?" Brad said, turning around from the soda machine. "It's not natural. There's something weird about her." "She probably goes home to her cats and her TV dinners," Nicole added. "Some people are just born to be alone." Alexander felt rage building in his chest like nothing he had ever experienced. These people had no idea who Maya really was. They didn't know about her brilliant mind, her kind heart, or the way she lit up when she talked about her marketing ideas at home. They didn't know that she volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends, or that she had put herself through graduate school while working 2 jobs. All they saw was someone they could tear down to make themselves feel better. Excuse me, Alexander said, his voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. The room went quiet instantly. Everyone turned to look at the stranger in the expensive suit holding flowers. There was something about his presence that commanded attention, something that made people instinctively straighten up and pay attention. "I'm looking for Maya Richardson," he said calmly, though his jaw was clenched tight. Jessica stepped forward, still riding high on her victory. She didn't recognize him, but she could tell he was someone important from the way he dressed and carried himself. "Oh, Maya," Jessica said with a dismissive wave. "She's not available right now. She had a little accident with some soda and had to go clean herself up. Clumsy girl, you know how it is." Jessica's friends snickered behind her, still enjoying their inside joke. "An accident," Alexander repeated slowly. "Yeah, totally accidental," Brad said, stepping up beside Jessica. "Sometimes these things just happen when people don't watch where they're going." Alexander looked around the room at the faces staring back at him. Some looked amused, others curious, but none of them seemed to realize the gravity of what they had just admitted to. "And you are?" Alexander asked Jessica, his voice dangerously quiet. "Jessica Mills, office manager," she said proudly. "I've been here for 5 years. I pretty much run this place." She looked him up and down, taking in his expensive clothes and confident demeanor. "Are you a client? Because if you're here to see Maya about work, I should probably handle that. She's not really leadership material, if you know what I mean." Alexander's grip tightened on the flower stems. Around the break room, people were starting to pull out their phones, sensing that something interesting was about to happen. But none of them had any idea just how interesting it was about to get. Alexander stood in the doorway of the break room, his knuckles white as he gripped the bouquet of flowers. The voices around him continued their cruel celebration, completely unaware that Maya's husband was listening to every word. "So who are you exactly?" Jessica asked again, stepping closer to Alexander with that same confident smirk she always wore. "Because if you're here about business, you should really be talking to me or one of the senior associates. I'm here for Maya," Alexander said simply, his voice steady but his eyes cold. "Maya?" Jessica laughed, looking back at her friends for support. "Trust me, you don't want to waste your time with her. She's not exactly what you'd call reliable. Just ask anyone here." Brad nodded enthusiastically. "Jessica's right. Maya's always been a bit off. Keeps to herself, acts like she's better than everyone else, not really a team player. Plus she just made a huge mess in here," Nicole added, pointing to the sticky spots on the floor where Coca-Cola had dripped. "Some people just can't handle being around normal folks." Alexander looked down at the stains on the floor, understanding exactly what had happened. His wife had been standing right here when they humiliated her. She had been alone, surrounded by people who were supposed to be her colleagues, and no one had defended her. "Tell me more about this accident," Alexander said, his voice getting quieter and more dangerous. Tom stepped forward, eager to share the story. "It was pretty funny, actually. Maya was being all uptight as usual, acting like she was too good to hang out with us. So Brad here was just trying to loosen her up a bit, you know? Sometimes people need a little push to learn how to be part of the team." "A push," Alexander repeated. "Yeah, like a reality check," Jessica said, warming up to her audience. "Maya's been here for 2 years and she still acts like she's above everyone else. Never joins us for lunch, never comes to happy hour, always sitting at her desk pretending to work on something important." "Maybe because her work actually is important," Alexander said quietly. Jessica snorted. "Important, please. She comes up with these amateur marketing ideas that sound good on paper but don't work in the real world. That's why we usually have to give her projects to someone more experienced." "Someone like you?" Alexander asked. "Exactly," Jessica said, proudly. "I've been in this business long enough to know what clients actually want. Maya's still stuck in business school theory mode." Around the room, other employees were starting to look uncomfortable. A few people were edging toward the door, sensing that this conversation was heading somewhere they didn't want to be part of. But Jessica, Brad, Nicole, and Tom were too caught up in their victory to notice the warning signs. "The funniest part," Brad said, refilling his cup again, was how she tried to protect those stupid papers of hers, like they were worth something, probably just more of her useless research that nobody asked for. Alexander felt something snap inside him. Those stupid papers were Maya's work on the Romano's restaurant account, the project she had been excited about for weeks. She had spent hours at home researching local suppliers and community partnerships, genuinely excited about the possibilities. "Where is Maya now?" Alexander asked. "Probably still in the bathroom crying," Nicole said with a giggle. "She looked pretty shaken up. Maybe now she'll learn that actions have consequences." "Yes," Alexander said softly. "They certainly do." Just then, the break room door opened and Maya walked back in. She had done her best to clean up, but the damage was still obvious. Her white blouse was stained and damp. Her hair was still sticky, despite her efforts to rinse it, and she was wearing her cardigan buttoned all the way up to hide the worst of the stains. Maya stopped dead when she saw Alexander standing there with flowers in his hand. For a moment she thought she was hallucinating. What was her husband doing at her office? "Alex," she said quietly, confusion and embarrassment mixing in her voice. "What are you doing here?" The entire break room went silent. Alexander's face softened completely as he looked at his wife, taking in her ruined clothes and the hurt in her eyes. "I came to surprise you for lunch, sweetheart," he said gently, walking over to her. "It's our anniversary." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind she had been holding back earlier. These were different tears, a mixture of relief and overwhelming love. In all the chaos and humiliation, she had forgotten what day it was. "Our anniversary," she whispered, accepting the flowers he handed her. Alexander cupped her face gently in his hands, his thumb brushing away a sticky residue of Coca-Cola that she had missed. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "I'm okay," Maya said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. "Excuse me," Jessica interrupted, her voice sharp with confusion and growing alarm. "Maya, do you know this man?" Maya looked at her husband, then back at Jessica. For 2 years she had kept her personal life completely separate from work. But standing here now, with Alexander's arms around her and his flowers in her hands, she realized she was tired of hiding. "This is my husband," Maya said simply. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps echoed around the room. Someone dropped their cup. Brad's mouth fell open so wide he looked like he was trying to catch flies. "Your husband," Jessica repeated, her voice climbing to a higher pitch. "But you never said you were married." "I prefer to keep my personal life private," Maya said. The same words she had used so many times before, but now with her husband's arm around her for support. Nicole was staring at Alexander like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "Wait a minute," she said slowly. "You look familiar. Are you—" "Alexander Chen," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "CEO and founder of Chen Industries." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's face went from confused to pale to absolutely white in the span of 3 seconds. Brad dropped his cup entirely, and this time it shattered on the floor. Tom took several steps backward like he was trying to escape. "The Alexander Chen?" someone whispered from the back of the room. "The billionaire?" another voice added. Jessica was staring at Maya like she was seeing her for the first time. "You're married to... But how... When did you... We've been married for 3 years, Maya said quietly. "Since before I started working here." Alexander was looking around the room at the faces staring back at him. Some people looked shocked, others looked scared, but the ones who had been laughing just minutes before looked absolutely terrified. "So," Alexander said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of authority, "I'd like to hear more about this accident my wife had, the one that ruined her clothes and destroyed her work." Jessica opened her mouth but no sound came out. Brad was backing toward the wall like he wanted to disappear into it. Nicole was frantically typing on her phone, probably deleting the videos she had taken earlier. "It was just a misunderstanding," Tom said weakly. "A harmless prank between co-workers." "Harmless," Alexander repeated the same way he had said accident earlier. "My wife comes to work, does her job professionally, and you decide she needs to be taught a lesson by having soda thrown on her. Is that what you call harmless? We were just trying to help her fit in better, Jessica said, her voice barely above a whisper. By humiliating her in front of the entire office? Alexander asked. By destroying her work and laughing about it? That's your idea of helping? Maya squeezed Alexander's hand, feeling a mixture of gratitude and concern. She could see the anger radiating off him, and while part of her was relieved to finally have someone defend her, she was also worried about what might happen next. Alex, she said softly, maybe we should just go. No, Alexander said firmly. We're not going anywhere, not until we get some answers. He pulled out his phone and Maya watched as he scrolled through his contacts. She had seen him make business calls before, but there was something different about the way he was holding himself now. This wasn't just business. This was personal. Kelly, he said when someone answered. Get me Robert Henderson on the phone now. Jessica's face somehow managed to get even whiter. Robert Henderson was the owner of the company, the man whose name was on the building. Within minutes, everyone in this room was going to have to explain to their boss why they had just humiliated the wife of one of the most powerful men in the tech industry. The break room was so quiet, you could hear people breathing. Maya stood next to her husband, still holding his flowers, watching as the people who had tormented her for 2 years realized that their victim wasn't as powerless as they had thought. Alexander looked around the room one more time, his eyes stopping on each person who had participated in Maya's humiliation. I think, he said quietly, it's time we all had a conversation about what really happened here today. The minutes that followed felt like hours to everyone in the break room. Alexander stood with his arm protectively around Maya, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke in low, urgent tones. Maya could only catch pieces of the conversation, but words like immediate meeting and unacceptable behavior came through clearly. Jessica was frantically whispering to Brad, Nicole, and Tom in the corner, but their hushed conversation kept getting interrupted by nervous glances toward Alexander. Other employees had started quietly slipping out of the break room, sensing that they didn't want to be anywhere near what was about to happen. Mr. Henderson will be here in 15 minutes, Alexander announced as he ended his call. He's coming, straight from his other office downtown. Jessica's hands were visibly shaking now. Look, maybe we can work this out without involving Mr. Henderson, she said, her voice high and desperate. It was just a misunderstanding. Nobody meant any harm. No. Harm? Alexander repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Look at my wife. Look at her clothes, her ruined work. Look at the humiliation you put her through in front of the entire office. You call that no harm? Brad stepped forward, sweat beading on his forehead. We didn't know who she was. If we had known she was married to you, we never would have. Stop. Right there. Alexander interrupted, his eyes flashing with anger. The fact that you think her worth as a person depends on who she's married to tells me everything I need to know about your character. Maya felt a surge of pride watching her husband defend not just her, but the principle of treating people with basic human dignity. This was why she had fallen in love with him, not because of his money or success, but because of his strong moral compass. Maya deserves respect because she's a talented, hardworking professional, Alexander continued. Not because she's my wife. The fact that you've been treating her poorly for 2 years while she quietly did excellent work shows exactly what kind of people you are. Nicole was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. We're sorry, she whispered. We're really, really sorry. Are you sorry because of what you did? Alexander asked coldly. Or are you sorry because you got caught? Before anyone could answer, the break room door opened and Robert Henderson rushed in, slightly out of breath and looking confused. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and kind eyes, and Maya had always thought he seemed decent from the few times she had seen him around the office. Alexander, Mr. Henderson said, extending his hand with a nervous smile. What a surprise to see you here. I didn't know you were visiting our office today. Alexander shook his hand, but his expression remained serious. Robert, I'm here because of my wife. Mr. Henderson looked around the room, his eyes settling on Maya with confusion. Your wife? Maya Richardson, Alexander said, pulling Maya closer to his side. She's been working here for 2 years as a marketing coordinator. Mr. Henderson's eyebrows shot up. Maya is your wife? But I had no idea. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because I asked her not to, Alexander said. Maya wanted to build her career on her own merits without anyone knowing about our relationship. She's been working here under her maiden name, proving herself through her talent and hard work. Mr. Henderson looked at Maya with new respect, then noticed her stained clothes and disheveled appearance. Maya, what happened to you? You look... That's exactly what we need to talk about, Alexander said grimly. These employees, he gestured toward Jessica, Brad, Nicole, and Tom, decided to teach my wife a lesson today. They threw Coca-Cola on her, destroyed her client work, and humiliated her in front of the entire office. Mr. Henderson's face went from confused to horrified in seconds. They did what? Jessica tried to speak up. Mr. Henderson, it wasn't like that. It was just a small workplace prank that got out of hand. We were trying to help Maya feel more included in the team. By pouring soda on her? Mr. Henderson asked, his voice rising. By destroying her work materials? What kind of inclusion is that? We didn't mean for it to go so far, Brad said weakly. It was supposed to be funny. Mr. Henderson turned to Maya, his expression full of concern. Maya, is this true? Have they been treating you this way? Maya looked around the room at the faces staring at her. For 2 years she had endured their subtle and not-so-subtle harassment in silence. She had told herself it wasn't that bad, that she could handle it, that speaking up would only make things worse. Yes, she said quietly. Not just today. For 2 years, they've made my work life miserable. They take credit for my ideas, exclude me from meetings and social events, and constantly make me feel like I don't belong here. Mr. Henderson's face was getting redder by the minute. And you never reported this behavior? I tried to handle it professionally, Maya said. I thought if I just worked harder and proved myself, things would get better. While you were working harder, Alexander said, his voice tight with controlled anger. These people were sabotaging her at every turn. They gave her projects to other people, dismissed her ideas, and today they decided to physically humiliate her. Mr. Henderson walked over to Jessica, his expression stern. Jessica, you're the office manager. You're supposed to create a positive work environment. Instead, you've been leading a campaign of harassment against one of our employees. It wasn't harassment, Jessica protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Maya just never fit in with the team culture. The team culture you created, Mr. Henderson said sharply. A culture that apparently includes throwing drinks on people and destroying their work. Alexander pulled out his phone again and showed Mr. Henderson something on the screen. Robert, before I came here today, I was planning to discuss a potential business partnership with you. Chen Industries has been looking to acquire a marketing firm for our expansion into consumer products. Mr. Henderson's eyes went wide. A business partnership? With Chen Industries? A $50 million acquisition, Alexander said calmly. Your company was at the top of our list. But after seeing how my wife has been treated here and witnessing the toxic culture you've allowed to develop, I'm having serious second thoughts. The silence in the room was deafening. Jessica looked like she was about to faint. Brad was staring at the floor like he wanted to disappear into it. Nicole had stopped crying and was just staring in shock. Tom was pressed against the wall like he was trying to become part of it. Mr. Henderson looked around the room, taking in the full scope of what had happened. Alexander, I had no idea any of this was going on. If I had known... But you didn't know, Alexander said, because you have managers who create hostile work environments and employees who think harassment is acceptable workplace behavior. Mr. Henderson turned to face Jessica, Brad, Nicole, and Tom. His voice was quiet but firm. You're all fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out of the building, and you have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings. Jessica's mouth fell open. You can't fire us over one small incident. I can and I am, Mr. Henderson said firmly. This isn't one small incident. This is a pattern of harassment that has been going on for 2 years. You've created a hostile work environment, damaged company property, and potentially cost us a major business opportunity. But we didn't know she was married to him, Brad protested. And that's exactly the problem, Mr. Henderson said. You think it's okay to treat people poorly unless they have powerful connections. That's not the kind of company I want to run. Alexander looked at Mr. Henderson with something approaching respect. I appreciate you taking swift action, Robert. But this is about more than just firing a few bad employees. This is about systemic change. What do you mean? Mr. Henderson asked. If Chen Industries is going to partner with any company, we need to know that company shares our values, Alexander explained. We need to see a real commitment to diversity, inclusion, and treating all employees with respect. Maya watched as her husband transformed into the business leader she knew him to be. This wasn't just about defending her anymore. This was about creating real change. I propose we establish a workplace culture fund, Alexander continued. $2 million to completely overhaul your HR policies, provide diversity training for all employees, and create a system where harassment claims are taken seriously. Mr. Henderson nodded eagerly. Absolutely, whatever it takes. Alexander turned to Maya. And I think my wife should head up this initiative. She understands better than anyone what needs to change here. Maya felt a surge of mixed emotions. Part of her wanted to run away from this place and never come back. But another part of her, the part that had always believed in justice and fairness, was intrigued by the possibility of making sure no one else went through what she had experienced. Actually, Maya said slowly, I think I'd rather start my own consulting company. Focus on helping businesses create genuinely inclusive workplaces. Alexander smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him since he walked into the break room. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I know exactly who your first investor should be. Mr. Henderson looked relieved that the partnership might still be possible. Maya, I hope you'll consider working with us as a consultant. We clearly need your expertise.